Good morning. Today I will be talking about bow drilling. There are some essential things we need for bow drilling. A knife, a saw, and then a batoning knife is helpful. This isn't a batoning knife I use, it's just a stand-in. Normally I actually use a little hatchet, but I can't for the life of me find it. Some other materials, we have what's known as a spindle. These two are white pine spindles, and these two are hemlock spindles, eastern hemlock. And this is some sort of river stone that I acquired out in the Smoky Mountains, or in the national forest around the Smoky Mountains. You can see I've taken some quartz and I have drilled with quartz into the base of this rock, and I've also used quartz to flatten this portion until it's smooth. And I've used this so frequently that I've got a little thumb rest right here that's been dug in just from where I pushed my thumb in right there. This is a beating stick. It's the wood that everybody says if you burn it, mountain laurel. They say if you burn it, the smoke will give you diarrhea, which is not, strictly speaking, true. And the beating stick is for the baton knife. And then I have two white pine boards. They have been batoned, which is why they're flat. This one, I've batoned the front and back of both, and then I batoned the edges off of this, which I would probably need to baton the edges off this, as it's gotten so dry that they're cracking off anyway, which is not a good sign. Well, it's not what we want. It's not really a sign of anything. And then I've got the bow. The bow is, I believe, sourwood. I harvested it fresh. I notched each end, and then you can kind of see the notching right there, if you can see the notching. The string is rather loose at the moment. I really need to tighten it, but that is not something I'm really wanting to do right at this moment. So, first things first, for bow drilling, we're going to take our board, our fireboard, our knife, these little Moroccanil, it's some Swedish word. These knives are really good for this. They're the best multi-purpose knife for being out in the woods. At least that's what I think. They might not be the sharpest. They may not last the longest. Well, they last. I've not had one go out on me yet. But most importantly, they're just about the cheapest for the quality. They're very high quality for the price. Get this back in the shot. Alright, so first things first. We've got our pilot hole dug with our little Swedish knife, Norwegian knife. We're going to take our spindle and drill into it with the bow. And to mount the spindle in the bow, take the spindle with the downward end facing us on top, and then thread it through one more time. Brace the end of the bow on your knee, because it's going to want to flip whenever you do this. So, on with this facing to your left. If you're right-handed, the base will be facing to the left. Thread, snap. Now if you've done it correctly, you'll have spindle, 550 cord, and your bow. If you're incorrect, it'll be 550 cord, spindle, then your bow. That creates a a lot of unnecessary friction, makes it a lot harder to get combustion. So now we're going to use this. We want our heel applying pressure, toes on the ground for stability, and then I'm going to grab my top rock, place it in the spindle, and you can see the spindle is sharpened to a tip, so that way it stays in here, and the spindles will wear down. You just have to resharpen them. That's really all there is to it. So put this on top, brace your wrist against your ankle, and go slowly at first. Slow, 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 and you can take longer strokes. I might have to reposition so I'm not hitting the cardboard. I'll go a little bit deeper. Remember, this is just our starter hole. You can already see, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but there's already smoke. There we go. We've got a very healthy amount of what's called punk. Punk is the wood fibers, and they're ground very fine. They're a powder, and so they will combust with enough friction, but only when they're this nice brown, light brown color. If they're black, you're applying too much down pressure, so you're pushing down too hard, and it's burning the punk as it's created, and you don't want that. You cannot create a ember with burnt punk. So now we're going to create a notch. The notch will hold our punk, and that will allow the punk to heat up, well, to build to a critical mass that will create an ember, and then it'll hold it close to where you're drilling, which will allow it to heat up. Oopsie daisy. There we go. As you can see, it's kind of set back. This is a bad example. The trench is too shallow in this example. And then this one's a little bit better. So we're going to try and get an ember, I should say. So we will mount. Whoops. That's very common. Happens every time, actually. Multiple times. Usually not just once. You want to try and center the string. If the string, as you're bow drilling, it travels up and down, and if your paracord gets too far down, it'll come off right here, and then your spindle will just fly away. You really don't want that. So let's see if we can't get some combustion. Now normally I do long strokes, and then whenever I get smoke, thick smoke, I transition to short strokes, short fast strokes, or long fast strokes really, and that helps really fire it up and get that ember going. just part of it. You can see we're building up punk. We're about halfway there. I'm going to sharpen the spindle. And this is, what did I say this was? Ah, shoot, ow, it's hot. This is a very hard wood to sharpen. You can see the smoke, hopefully. Ow! If I don't burn myself too much doing this. It's not really the goal. And you can see where it's getting stuck. There's actually, you can see charring on the sides. That's from where my hand's moving. The hole is what's called snow manning. It's whenever you get two distinct holes. I'm not going to move the board to show you because then I'll lose all my punk. But you get two distinct holes and it causes a lot of side friction. You can see there's a whole lot of travel. It should be as tightly fit around the spindle as possible. But I've screwed this one up, which is really hard not to screw up something when bow drilling. It's an art. And the sliding, oh my knees. The sliding up and down, or the sliding where it's not rotating, can be mitigated through scarification of the spindle. This will add friction or traction to the spindle and it allows the P-cord to catch more easily. Just putting some of that original punk back in there. We've got, I don't know, ½ inch, quarter inch left to go before we can even get an ember. I think that's that for this try. We've busted out the corner, and that's really a worst case scenario. So I don't think we're gonna get fire this time, but that's more or less the basics of bow drilling.